In 2008, one performance didn't just captivate the world, it felt like it consumed it. Heath Ledger's Joker became more than a character. He became a cultural icon, a symbol of pure anarchy that was as mesmerizing as it was terrifying. It was a performance that felt less like acting and more like a possession, a perfect storm of creativity and chaos that clawed its way right off the screen and into our collective psyche. He became the undisputed highlight of a cinematic masterpiece, a villain so compelling he overshadowed the hero at every single turn. But the story of how the man disappeared into the madness is even more disturbing. The mystery and the myths surrounding his preparation have become as legendary as the performance itself. We've all heard the stories, the self-imposed isolation, the disturbing diary, the complete immersion into a shattered mind. But where did the truth end and the legend begin? To understand the icon, we have to uncover the inspirations, the obsessive preparation, and the personal journey of Heath Ledger. From his sunny beginnings in Australia to the darkness that created a legend and ultimately led to a tragic, untimely end. This is the story of the man behind the makeup, the artist behind the anarchy, and the disturbing inspiration behind the icon. Long before the purple suit and the smeared lipstick, before that chilling laugh echoed through Gotham's canyons, there was just a boy from Perth, Western Australia. Born on April 4th, 1979, Heathcliff Andrew Ledger was a product of the sun and the suburbs, a world away from the urban decay he would one day embody. His parents, Sally, a French teacher, and Kim, a mining engineer involved in motorsports, named him and his older sister, Catherine, after the passionate, tormented lovers from Emily Bronte's Gothic novel, Wuthering Heights. Looking back, it was an almost prophetic choice, hinting at a life that would be defined by both intense passion and profound turmoil. As a kid, Ledger wasn't immediately drawn to the stage. His first obsession was more cerebral, more strategic, chess. He was a gifted player, even competing in tournaments, and he developed a mind for foresight and calculation. This early love for the game, for seeing several moves ahead, for understanding that every action creates a chain of consequences, would become a quiet tool in his acting arsenal, allowing him to deconstruct characters with an almost architectural precision. He first got a taste for acting at 10 years old in a school production of Peter Pan. He was bitten by the bug, and the stage offered a different kind of strategy. A way to explore human nature, to step into someone else's shoes and understand their moves. By the time he was a teenager, the choice was clear. At just 16, with a fiery ambition, Ledger sat for his early graduation exams, packed his bags, and drove with his best friend across the vast, empty expanse of Australia from Perth to Sydney, chasing a dream that must have seemed a million miles away. His early career was a slow burn, picking up small roles in Australian television. He played a gay cyclist in the series Sweat, and had parts in shows like Home and Away and the short-lived fantasy series Roar. These were the dues-paying years, a young actor learning his craft far from the blinding lights of Hollywood. But for Ledger, Australia was just the training ground. He had his sights set on the world stage. And in 1998, he made the leap, moving to the United States to test his mettle. He arrived not as a star, but as an unknown, an Australian actor with a quiet confidence and a fierce, unproven ambition. He was a blank slate, and no one, least of all him, could have predicted the dark, sprawling epic his story would become. Hollywood loves putting actors in boxes. When Heath Ledger arrived with his rugged good looks and undeniable charisma, the box was already built for him. Teen heartthrob, His breakout American role in the 1999 teen comedy 10 Things I Hate About You seemed to seal his fate. As the rebellious, charming Patrick Verona, he was an instant sensation. He could sing, he could smolder, he could win the girl. The industry saw a leading man, a poster boy, a safe bet. But Heath Ledger saw a trap. He was grateful for the attention, but he was terrified of being typecast. He hadn't traveled halfway across the world just to become a one-note wonder. So he actively resisted the easy path, turning down the lucrative but creatively bankrupting roles that were flooding his agent's office. Instead, he made a conscious, career-defining pivot. He started hunting for roles that would shatter that pretty boy image. Characters with grit, complexity, and moral ambiguity. This pattern of deliberate defiance became his trademark. In The Patriot, he stood opposite the powerhouse Mel Gibson, not as a romantic interest, but as a soldier grappling with the brutal realities of war. Then came Monsters Ball, a dark, emotionally grueling drama where he played a corrections officer haunted by the legacy of his racist father. It was a small but pivotal role, one that basically screamed his intentions to the world. He was not afraid of the dark. He followed this with A Knight's Tale, a film that looked like a swashbuckling romp on the surface, but let him carry a major studio film with a cool blend of modern humor and classic heroism. These weren't accidental choices, they were strategic. He was building a resume that was as diverse as it was impressive, proving his range with every new project. He was drawn to characters on the fringe, to stories that explored the messy, complicated corners of the human experience. He was an artist searching for a challenge, and he believed the greatest rewards came from the greatest risks. This relentless pursuit of complexity, this desire to dive into the deep end, was laying the very foundation for the actor who would one day be fearless enough to look at one of cinema's most iconic villains and say, "I can do something new." He wasn't just building a career, he was forging the armor he'd need for the battles to come. Beneath the rising star and the intense actor, there was a man of surprising sensitivity and artistic depth. Heath Ledger's personal life, though often under the glare of the public eye, was really grounded in a search for authentic connection and creative expression. He dated actresses like Naomi Watts, but it was on the set of a quiet, revolutionary film in 2004 that his life would change forever. The film was Brokeback Mountain, and the actress was Michelle Williams. They were cast as a husband and wife in a loveless marriage, but behind the scenes, their connection was immediate and profound. Co-star Anne Hathaway recalled, "There were sparks immediately." Jake Gyllenhaal remembered watching them with googly eyes with each other. Their chemistry wasn't just for the camera, it was real. A gentle romance blossoming against the sweeping backdrop of the Wyoming mountains. Their relationship deepened quickly. They moved to Brooklyn, deliberately choosing a life away from the Hollywood bubble. They were often just another local couple, with Ledger on his skateboard and Williams active in the community. This desire for normalcy was their anchor in the whirlwind of fame. In October 2005, their daughter Matilda Rose was born, and fatherhood transformed Ledger completely. Friends and family described him as a devoted, doting father. The fierce focus he brought to his roles was now channeled into this new, profound love. He cherished his daughter, and the little family they had created in their Brooklyn brownstone became his sanctuary. Beyond acting, Ledger was a restless artist. He was an obsessive photographer who would often draw and paint over his own pictures. He directed music videos and harbored a deep ambition to one day direct a feature film. His mind was always working, a fact Michelle Williams would later confirm. "For as long as I'd known him, he had bouts with insomnia," she said. "He had too much energy. His mind was turning, always turning." This portrait of Ledger, the loving father, the passionate partner, the multifaceted artist who loved playing chess in Washington Square Park, is so important. It stands in such stark, heartbreaking contrast to the abyss he would later explore. He was a man of light and gentleness, a man who had built a life of quiet joy. And it's this humanity that makes his transformation into the Joker not just a feat of acting, but a terrifying, tragic paradox. 2005 was a watershed year for Heath Ledger. His performance as Ennis Del Mar in Brokeback Mountain was a revelation. It was a masterpiece of restraint, a portrayal of repressed love and silent torment that was both heartbreaking and profound. He could convey a lifetime of sorrow in just a downturned glance or a tightened jaw. The role earned him universal critical acclaim, an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor, and solidified his status as one of the most compelling actors of his generation. He had proven he could do more than just take risks. He could turn those risks into the highest caliber of art. It was with this newfound prestige that he got a call that would alter the course of his life and cinematic history. Director Christopher Nolan was prepping his follow-up to Batman Begins and was looking for his Joker. Nolan had actually met with Ledger years earlier for the role of Batman, a part Ledger politely declined, saying he just wasn't interested in superhero films. But the Joker? The Joker was different. The Joker wasn't a hero, but Christopher Nolan saw something that no one else did. He saw a fearlessness in Ledger. He saw an actor who wasn't afraid to be disliked on screen, who was willing to submerge himself completely. He was very clear, Nolan recalled, about their meeting. He seemed to understand how this character could be extraordinarily frightening and fresh and different than anything that had been done before. For Ledger, all that skepticism was just fuel. The role was the ultimate challenge. A chance to take a character steeped in 70 years of pop culture history and reinvent it from the ground up. He told an interviewer, "If Tim Burton was doing The Dark Knight and asked me to play the Joker, I wouldn't have taken it. To touch what Jack Nicholson did in Tim Burton's world would be a crime." But Nolan's world was different. It was gritty, grounded, realistic. It was a world where a character like the Joker could be reimagined not as a cartoon villain, but as a terrifyingly plausible agent of chaos. Ledger said he instantly kind of had something up my sleeve. He was ready to show the world exactly what that was. The stage was set for a descent into madness, a journey from which neither he nor popular culture would ever fully return. To build a monster, Heath Ledger first had to build a cage. He rented a hotel room in London, and for about a month and a half, he locked himself away. This self-imposed isolation became the stuff of legend, the crucible where his Joker was forged. It was a period of intense, solitary focus, a time to strip away Heath Ledger entirely and fill the void with something new and terrifying. His father, Kim Ledger, later said, he pretty well locked himself up to sort of galvanize the upcoming character in his own mind. I think this was just a whole new level. His main tool in this process was a small, unassuming notebook, the Joker Diary. This diary became the epicenter of his creation, a scrapbook of madness. It was filled with a chaotic collage of inspirations. There were images of hyenas, their unsettling grins mirroring the laugh he was trying to find. There were pictures of menacing-looking clowns and stills of Alex DeLarge, the sociopathic anti-hero from Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange. Clippings from Batman comics were pasted in, and scrawled across the pages in manic handwriting were the Joker's lines, along with his own disturbing thoughts. While the full diary hasn't been made public, reports from those who saw it described lists of things the Joker would find funny, including words like blind babies and AIDS. On one page, the word chaos is highlighted in green, a mission statement for the character. It's a combination of reading all the comic books I could that were relevant to the script and then just closing my eyes and meditating on it. He wanted to land on something truly original, aiming for a psychopathic, mass-murdering, schizophrenic clown with zero empathy. The voice was critical. It had to be iconic, yet totally distinct. He experimented endlessly, recording himself and listening back, searching for the perfect pitch and cadence. The final result was unsettlingly unique, reportedly drawing from the strange, halting speech patterns of ventriloquist dummies. Christopher Nolan described the effect as mesmerizing. His voice was so unpredictable. You never knew if he was going to go high or if he was going to go low. You never knew what that guy was going to do, and that's what was terrifying about him. And then there was the laugh. It wasn't one sound, but a whole spectrum of them. It could be a short, sarcastic bark, or rise into a high-pitched cackle that seemed to physically pain him. Each laugh was tailored to the Joker's mood. Sometimes it signaled amusement, other times pure menace. It was the sound of a mind that had completely shattered and found the pieces hilarious. The character began to manifest physically. Ledger adopted a strange, stooped posture, as if weighed down by his own chaotic thoughts. He developed the now iconic tic of constantly licking his lips. This was actually born from a practical issue. The prosthetic scars on his cheeks would start to come loose, so he licked his lips to keep them in place. But it evolved into a perfect reptilian character trait. His gaze was another weapon. He used the Kubrick stare, tilting his head down but staring up from under his eyebrows. It created an unnerving, predatory feeling, as if he was always sizing you up, always looking for a weakness. The makeup itself was a collaboration. Ledger insisted the Joker would apply his own makeup, that it shouldn't be perfect, but messy, cracked, and lived in. Makeup artist John Caglione Jr. revealed that Ledger would scrunch up his face as the white makeup was applied, creating the cracks that made it look like he'd been wearing it for days. Even his fingers were often stained with makeup, a subtle detail that added to the authenticity. Locked in that hotel room, Heath Ledger wasn't just learning lines. He was birthing a consciousness. He was meticulously crafting every single element of this agent of chaos, from the sound of his laugh to the stains on his fingers. He was building him from the inside out, piece by disturbing piece, until the man from Perth was gone and only the Joker remained. When Heath Ledger finally emerged from his isolation and stepped onto the set of The Dark Knight, the effect was immediate and electric. The crew, the cast, even veteran actors were unprepared for the force he had summoned. Sir Michael Caine, who played Alfred, famously recalled his first encounter with the Joker during the party crash scene. When Ledger entered, so fully formed and menacing, Caine completely forgot all of his lines. That was the first clue that this wasn't just a performance, it was an event. Perhaps no scene better captures the raw, unhinged energy of Ledger's creation than the interrogation scene. It's a masterclass in psychological warfare, a battle between Batman's immovable object and the Joker's unstoppable force. And according to Christian Bale, Ledger was committed to making it feel as real as possible. Our first scene was in an interrogation room together, Bale recalled, and I saw that he's a hell of an actor who is completely committed to it. As the scene grew more violent, with Batman physically intimidating the Joker, Ledger actually encouraged Bale not to hold back. Bale said, "He was kind of egging me on." I was saying, "You know what? I really don't need to actually hit you. It's going to look just as good if I don't." And he's going, "Go on, go on, go on." Bale described Ledger slamming himself around the tiled room, denting the walls with his own body. He wasn't just acting out the pain. He was creating an environment of genuine chaos. The more Batman beat him, the more the Joker loved it. And that twisted glee was entirely Ledger's creation. Ledger's commitment to improvisation led to one of the film's most iconic moments. In the scene where the Joker, dressed as a nurse, blows up Gotham General Hospital, there's a moment where he walks away as the explosions are supposed to go off in sequence. But a technical glitch caused a delay in one of the final charges. Instead of breaking character, Ledger did something remarkable. He paused, looked back at the hospital with a look of childish frustration, fiddled with the detonator with a comical little shake, and then, when the final explosion finally went off, he jumped in surprise before gleefully hopping onto the bus. That entire sequence was unscripted. Christopher Nolan, recognizing genius when he saw it, just kept the cameras rolling. It was a perfect, spontaneous moment that said everything you need to know about the character. He's an agent of chaos who's genuinely delighted when his chaos works as planned. The intensity of these stories fueled the myth that Ledger had been consumed by the role, that he'd lost himself in the Joker and couldn't get back. But those who worked with him paint a more nuanced picture. He was a consummate professional. As committed as he was during a take, he could shed the character between scenes. Crew members described him as warm and friendly, often skateboarding around the set in full Joker costume, smoking a cigarette and joking with them. Christian Bale noted, when he was in the makeup and the garb, he was in character the whole time, and when he took it off, he was absolutely fantastic company to be around. The truth is more complex than the myth. He wasn't possessed, he was dedicated. He was an artist who willingly walked into the darkness to find something authentic, but that journey took an immense toll. At the end of a filming day, he was often described as being completely exhausted, having poured every ounce of his energy into the performance. The process was physically and mentally taxing, a psychological marathon he ran every single day. He was in control, but control at that level of intensity comes at a very steep price. Filming on The Dark Knight wrapped, but the shadows of Gotham seemed to follow Heath Ledger. The immense effort it took to embody the Joker had left him physically and mentally drained. The chronic insomnia he'd battled for years had only gotten worse. In a New York Times interview in late 2007, he admitted, "Last week I probably slept an average of 2 hours a night. I couldn't stop thinking. My body was exhausted and my mind was still going." He spoke of taking Ambien, but it offered little relief, leaving him in a stupor only to wake an hour later. Compounding his exhaustion was profound personal heartbreak. In September 2007, he and Michelle Williams separated. The end of their 3-year relationship was devastating for Ledger. He moved out of their Brooklyn home, and the separation from his beloved daughter Matilda caused him immense pain. Friends said he was struggling deeply with the breakup. Director Terry Gilliam, who was working with Ledger on his next film, said the custody struggles made Heath snap. He threw himself into his next project, Terry Gilliam's fantastical film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. But those on set could see the toll his life had taken. He was suffering from what friends believed was walking pneumonia, yet he refused to stop working. Gilliam recalled Ledger saying, "I'm not going to go home because I can't sleep and I'll be just thinking about the situation. I'd rather stay here and work." His vocal coach at the time lived with him and expressed concern over his reliance on prescription medication to sleep, though he noted that Ledger wasn't drinking. It was the portrait of a man running on fumes, wrestling with sickness, insomnia, and heartache, all while trying to pour what was left of himself into another demanding role. On January 22, 2008, the world came to a sudden, shocking halt. Heath Ledger was found dead in his Manhattan apartment. He was only 28 years old. The cause of death was ruled an accidental overdose from a toxic combination of prescription medications. It was a devastating end to a brilliant life, a tragedy that silenced one of the most promising voices of a generation. He would never get to see the release of The Dark Knight, never witness the cultural tidal wave his performance would unleash, and never know that his haunting, chaotic creation would become his immortal legacy. 6 months after his death, The Dark Knight was released to a world that was both mourning the man and anticipating his final complete performance. The film was a blockbuster, a critical and commercial triumph, but at its heart was a searing, unforgettable presence. Heath Ledger's Joker wasn't just a great performance, it was a cultural detonation. The acclaim was universal and immediate. Critics lauded it as one of the greatest screen villains in history. The performance transcended the genre. This wasn't a comic book character. This was a chillingly real embodiment of anarchy, a philosophical terrorist who didn't want money or power. He just wanted, as Alfred so perfectly put it, to watch the world burn. His chaos felt real, his motivations terrifyingly simple. He was the perfect villain for a post-9/11 world grappling with a new kind of faceless nihilistic terror. The awards season that followed became a tribute to his genius. He won award after award, culminating in the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. On that emotional night in February 2009, his family took the stage to accept the Oscar on his behalf. His father Kim, mother Sally, and sister Kate stood before a tearful Hollywood. His father thanked the Academy for recognizing our son's amazing work. His mother spoke of his compassionate and generous soul. And finally, his sister Kate, her voice thick with emotion, looked out and spoke directly to her brother. Heath, we both knew what you had created in the Joker was extraordinarily special and had even talked about being here on this very day. We really wish you were, but we proudly accept this award on behalf of your beautiful Matilda. The legacy of that performance endures. It redefined what a comic book movie could be and set a new bar for screen villainy that may never be surpassed. Actors who have since taken on the role do so with reverence. Joaquin Phoenix, when he won a Screen Actors Guild Award for his own portrayal, ended his speech by saying, "Really, I'm standing here on the shoulders of my favorite actor, Heath Ledger." Out of respect, Christopher Nolan decided the Joker would not be recast or even mentioned in the final film of his trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. The character was off the table, an acknowledgement that what Ledger did was singular and unrepeatable. His Joker wasn't just a role he played. It's a performance that now belongs to cinema history, immortalized in that smeared makeup, that reptilian lip lick, and that haunting, unforgettable laugh. The story of Heath Ledger and the Joker is a modern myth, a tragedy of Shakespearean scale about an artist who flew incredibly close to a very dark sun. We see the journey from the bright shores of Australia to a determined young actor who consciously defied Hollywood's expectations. We see the sensitive man who found joy in fatherhood and the serious artist who reached the pinnacle of his profession with Brokeback Mountain. And then we see the turn, the call from Gotham, the dive into the abyss, and the meticulous construction of chaos in a lonely hotel room. The disturbing inspiration for the icon wasn't just a comic book, or A Clockwork Orange, or the cackle of a hyena. The most disturbing inspiration was Heath Ledger's own relentless, uncompromising drive. His need to push past every limit and to excavate a truth so raw it left a scar on everyone who saw it. He did not die because he played the Joker. He died from a tragic combination of exhaustion, illness, and the prescription drugs he used to battle the demons of his own restless mind. But it's impossible to separate the legend of the performance from the tragedy of the man. He gave everything to the role, and in doing so, created a masterpiece. He left behind a legacy that is both brilliant and heartbreaking, a testament to an immense talent that burned so brightly and was extinguished far, far too soon. Did Heath Ledger's Joker leave a mark on you? What's your favorite moment from his performance? Let us know down in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the stories behind iconic films and performances, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.